How you doing, guys? Today I'm going to show you where I stand on my 1056 pseudo Kohler custom project. One of the things I was working on over the last week is the tie rods. The original tie rods of the tractor were just totally blown out and really sloppy. They just weren't useful. So I went online to possibly buy a set of new ones, and I couldn't believe the prices. I mean, the prices on these new tie rods was like $60. I was like, yeah, not doing that. So I went on to my good friend eBay, ordered up the ball joint ends that I needed. I got the 4 of them for, like, with shipping, $11, which I thought was reasonable. And as you can see, what I did was I took a piece of 3/4 inch bar stock and I tapered the ends just to give them a nice look. Then I drilled and tapped it for 3/8 24. Because that's what the female section of the ball joint is 3/8 24. So I drilled in about 1.25 inches, 1.125, somewhere right in there, and I tapped it 3/8 24. I took a piece of threaded rod, a corresponding red Loctite it in place, put the end on. I red Loctite that into place also, as well as on the inside, as you can see. And I just had to space it out just a hair with a washer on both sides, just to give me enough length, so when it's in the neutral position, basically going straight forward, the spindles are all perfectly lined up, because there is no adjustment in the tie rods themselves. They are solid, and it really worked out nice. I was quite happy with the way it came out. I mean, when you grab this, or when you grab the sun gear where you're going to steer, there's absolutely no play. I mean, there might be just a hair in that. You can actually see that spindle kind of going up and down. That's the little bit of play. But I mean, other than that, there's absolutely no play in the steering. So that should steer and feel real nice. I'll just hit them with a little bit of paint, and they'll all blend in and they'll look nice and clean. The other thing that I was starting to work on is basically, what am I going to do with the finish? Basically the paint. So what I did was I started to wet sand the original paint down to get to what I would think the final product would look like. And I'm not too happy with it. I really don't want to paint this tractor, to be honest with you. But more to come on that. I've had to hit it with like 220 to get all the rust off it, and then go through a series of like 600 and 1,000. And then I've been polishing it or buffing it a little bit. In the backside, it looks pretty good. I'm still working on it. More to come on that. I'm not quite ready to talk about it in totality, but that's the direction I'm kind of going in. I'm trying to save the original paint. I don't know if I'm going to be able to. All right, I'm going to head on down to the dungeon, and let's take a look at the motor. So after a brief walk, I'm in the dungeon. So on the motor, I've been doing a couple things. One is I brought my billet rod, over to my buddy's machine shop, and I machined the end down just a little less than 1/16 of an inch on either side. And what that's going to do is it gives me just enough clearance that it's going to fit into my piston perfectly. So I'm going to be able to run the billet rod with the maul piston. So they're much stouter piston than the standard K series. And I emailed Zach Kerber about what I had done. I sent him some pics, and he was like, it looks perfect. It's gonna work mint. So with that, my rod is all set to be installed. It needs to be cleaned, obviously. I got to break it apart, clean it all, clean the piston. And then I'll start to install. I'll put the crank in, obviously, put the rings on, and then drop it in the hole. But not right now. What I'm working on right now is my camshaft. And what I've done here is I basically have just dry fit the cam into the block because of a couple reasons. One, I'm going to come around the other side. Maybe it might be a little better shot. There we go. the reason why I came over onto this side is I have basically the entire valve train on the motor is brand new. It has NOS valves, new springs, new retainers, new keepers. The lifters are both NOS. The camshaft obviously is an aftermarket camshaft that's been reground, so that's essentially brand new. And it has, or I bought a brand new cam pin, which it hasn't been seated yet. It's just barely touching. So what I wanted to do was put the whole thing together, just make sure I didn't have any major fitment issues. I still have to go through my little bag of shims and figure out which shim I need to put in to shim the camshaft. I haven't measured that out yet, but I will. Here's a little funny anecdote. I was spinning the camshaft, right? And it got to this point where it was like this hard stop. It just wasn't moving. And I'm like, you can hear it. They're like, what the hell is that? It was the compression release. The compression release, I was spinning it in the opposite direction, so the compression release was just tapping the lifter. I didn't want to force it, but it felt like initially it felt like the camshaft was jammed. And I'm like, you got to be kidding me. That was one of these routines. But then once I got my head about me, started thinking about it, I was like, oh, it's the compression release lever. One thing that I did install completely is the governor. I put the rod in, the bushings in, the screws in. You probably can't see it down in there because it's underneath the camshaft. Not really. I apologize. I don't have my flashlight with me. But the cast iron governor gear is in place. I did put the shim in. It is white lithium. The post is white lithium greased. So is the little bushing that's in the block for the actual arm. All that's all been white lithium grease. I use white lithium grease because it'll break up with the oil, but it sticks enough to, on the initial startup, everything stays lubricated. I'll use white lithium grease on the lifters and all over the camshaft lobes initially, so that way it's pre-lubricated. There we go. On initial startup, on the pin itself inside the camshaft, I'll put actual assembly lube on that. I'll dribble oil all over these gears so everything gets pre-lubed before the engine gets started. I already have engine lube within the bearing, so that should be lubricated enough for the initial startup. Obviously, no balance gears. Not going to put those back in, so it's not needed. So what else? So, production's been a little bit slow. I've been busy. I've had a couple things to do here and there. But I am kind of picking at it. I'm hoping for the next video, the motor will be pretty much all put together. So that way we could talk about placement, exhaust, how it fits underneath the hood, the blower cover, a whole bunch of aspects that still need to be looked at. As for an exhaust, I was going to make this real kind of cool exhaust pipe that kind of goes down and under the tractor. But now I'm thinking about just making a little zoomy pipe that comes off the motor itself. My only fear with doing a zoomy, although it looks freaking cool when they just stick out the hood, just by maybe 4 inches or so, it's too loud. It's caustic. The sound of the engine is just caustic, and that's not a lot of fun to me because I don't want to have to wear earplugs and plus when you take it to a tractor show, let's be honest, the idiot that starts one of these things up that has like this ridiculous loud caustic sound, I don't know. If you called me an asshole when I did that, I'd have to own that because I am an asshole with the stupid loud tractor at a tractor show, especially when there's kids and can't run it through the parts area because drive everybody nuts. So I don't know. I'm still thinking about the whole zoomy pipe. It looks cool, but I think it's just going to be too loud. So I'm still working on the exhaust. You got any suggestions? Let me know. I know a true tractor puller is supposed to have a stack. I even know in my local area the rules say you're supposed to have a stack. I just don't like stacks on garden tractors. I just think they look ridiculous. That's my own personal opinion, but If you have something, a suggestion other than a stack, by all means, please put it in the comment sections. As always, guys, thank you very much for your time. Thank you for watching. If you haven't subscribed and you like watching little engine builds and tractors and stupidity, by all means, please subscribe. You guys have a nice day. We'll talk shortly.